Imagine a phone call that changes everything. A loved one, gone. Not just gone for a few hours, but vanished into thin air, leaving behind a silence that screams louder than any noise. That agonizing uncertainty, the endless questions, the desperate hope that each passing day might bring an answer, or at least a clue. It's a fear that touches us all. The thought of someone we cherish simply ceasing to exist, leaving a void that can never truly be filled. For the Chappell family in Georgia, that nightmare became a chilling reality more than a decade ago, when their son, Blake Chappell, disappeared. Blake Chappell was a young man with a future ahead of him. He was 23 years old, living in Loganville, Georgia, and by all accounts, he was a good kid, loved by his family and friends. He had a job, a life, and plans. But on the evening of October 21st, 2013, Blake left his home, telling his mother he was going to meet up with some friends. He never came back. The hours turned into days and the days into weeks. Blake's family, frantic with worry, did everything they could. They filed a missing persons report, plastered flyers with his face across town, and pleaded with anyone who would listen for information. The initial search was exhaustive, but yielded nothing. No trace of Blake, no calls, no messages. It was as if he had simply evaporated. The police investigation began, but without any leads, without a body, without even a clear motive. It was a frustrating and heartbreaking process. The family held on to hope, clinging to the possibility that Blake might still be out there, that he might walk through the door at any moment. But as time wore on, that hope began to fray, replaced by a gnawing dread. A few months after Blake's disappearance, the case took a dark turn. What began as a missing persons investigation slowly, painfully transitioned into a suspected murder. The lack of any activity on Blake's phone or bank accounts, combined with the complete absence of any contact, pointed to a grim conclusion. The family's worst fears were starting to solidify. The conflict shifted from finding Blake to finding out what happened to him and who was responsible. The initial suspects were those closest to Blake, his friends, his acquaintances. The police interviewed dozens of people, trying to piece together Blake's last known movements, looking for any inconsistencies, any secrets. But everyone seemed to have an alibi, or at least a plausible story, and the case grew cold. The official investigation stalled, leaving the Chappell family in a torturous limbo, forever wondering, forever searching for answers that seemed to elude them. Years passed. 1 year turned into 5, then into 10. The Chappell family never gave up. They kept Blake's memory alive, continued to push for answers, and refused to let his story be forgotten. They became advocates, not just for Blake, but for all families of missing persons, understanding the unique agony of an unresolved loss. The case, though officially cold, remained a haunting presence in the community, a stark reminder of a life cut short and a mystery unsolved. Then, recently, more than a decade after Blake vanished, a flicker of light appeared in the darkness. The case, long dormant, suddenly roared back to life. It began with renewed attention, partly fueled by the power of online communities and true crime enthusiasts. YouTube documentaries, diving deep into the twists and turns of Blake's story, started to go viral. These videos meticulously laid out the known facts, highlighted the lingering questions, and crucially, kept Blake's name in the public consciousness. This digital resurgence created a groundswell of interest, and perhaps put pressure on those who knew something to finally speak up. And speak up they did. The breakthrough came in the form of new evidence, and most significantly, confessions. Details are still emerging, but what we know is that individuals who were once considered persons of interest, or even just peripheral figures, began to crack under the weight of their secrets. One confession, then another, started to paint a horrifying picture of what truly happened to Blake Chappell. The initial reports indicated that Blake was lured to a location under false pretenses, and then tragically murdered. The motive, as it often is in such cases, appears to have been tangled in personal disputes and perhaps a desperate attempt to cover up other illicit activities. The confessions revealed that Blake's death was not a random act of violence, but a planned, calculated crime. The details were chilling, describing how his body was disposed of in an attempt to erase all traces of the crime, explaining why he had remained missing for so long. For the Chappell family, these confessions, while devastating, brought a measure of resolution to the agonizing question of what happened to their son. The uncertainty, the most cruel aspect of a missing persons case, was finally partially lifted. They now knew. But knowing the truth, however horrific, is only one step towards justice. Following these confessions, arrests were made. Individuals who had walked free for over 10 years were finally taken into custody, facing charges related to Blake's murder. The legal process is now underway, a new chapter in this long and painful saga. The family, after years of fighting for answers, is now fighting for justice in the courts. It's a slow, arduous journey, but one they are determined to see through. The community, once again, is grappling with the brutal reality of what happened in their quiet town, and the long shadow cast by such a heinous crime. This case, like so many others, highlights the enduring power of persistence, the unwavering love of a family, and the unexpected ways in which truth can eventually surface. It scales beyond just Blake Chappell's story, touching on the broader implications of cold cases, the role of public attention in reigniting investigations, and the profound impact of unresolved trauma on families and communities. The fact that YouTube documentaries played a part in bringing renewed attention to this case speaks volumes about how information spreads today, and how a collective human desire for justice can sometimes push through decades of silence. The Chappell family's journey is a testament to resilience, a heartbreaking example of what it means to live with an open wound for years, and the bittersweet relief that comes with finally understanding the truth, even if it's a truth steeped in sorrow. It reminds us that every missing person is someone's son, daughter, brother, or sister, and that their stories deserve to be told, remembered, and ultimately resolved. The pursuit of justice for Blake Chappell continues, a decade-long fight that has finally found its way back into the light.